From the station that's working for you, you're watching Fox 4 News at 9.
May 17th marks the 54th anniversary of the Brown versus the Topeka Board of Education decision.
That Supreme Court ruling made it unlawful for states to segregate school children. Fox 4's Bob Stepanich tells us about one school in mid-Missouri that remains a relic from that unjust time.
That school stands as a monument, but also as an embarrassment from those days of separate but equal. Let me take you to Dalton, Missouri, and its old school on the hill. In its time, it served as a refuge for African-American children in rural Missouri. Folks here in mid-Missouri will tell you that this old school building is much more than just bricks and mortar. They say it's both an icon and an eyesore from an unjust time. Welcome to Dalton, Missouri, population 10, plus a few stray dogs. Folks here carry out a simple lifestyle.
Plant my garden, go fishing, take walks.
The only sound you might hear is that of a passing freight train. People here will tell you it's a dying town. Its old abandoned pool hall struggles to stand upright, and so does that old school up on the hill.
It has changed a whole lot.
Local historians say that after the Civil War, many freed slaves stayed close to their former master's land and settled right here in this Missouri River Valley.
My great-grandmother was in slavery.
And they used Dalton School to carve out a better way of life for their families.
And what did freedom mean? Freedom meant being able to do those things you couldn't do as a slave. Establishing your own church, calling your own preacher, owning your own land if you could, and most especially learning to read and write.
But it was against the law for blacks and whites to learn together. Enter Dalton Vocational. Built 100 years ago to teach African-American children how to farm.
That was a remarkable commitment to education on the part of these kids and their parents. They really wanted to learn.
Today, that school is certainly worse for wear. It's now used by farmers who dry tobacco in its classrooms, birds who build nests in its light fixtures, and mud divers who do the same in its ceilings. Even the old basketball goal out front has seen better days. But turn back the pages of time on this old school, and it springs to life. These four alums say that life at Dalton Vocational wasn't much different than any other school of its time.
Every Friday we would go someplace to play a basketball game.
They had their proms and homecoming parades. They had talented yet tough teachers.
You couldn't be a half a second late for her class.
They even had hazings for incoming freshmen.
They wasn't supposed to, but I don't think they initiated the girls, but the boys, they'd take you out behind the school building, and they would really initiate you.
Oh, but there were differences, too. The school boasted championship basketball teams.
I can hear them right this moment as they are throwing it and achieving and patting each other on the back.
Yet their sports equipment was inferior.
It was on a dirt court. And if it was muddy or rained, we couldn't practice.
And they say academic facilities were just as subpar.
The white school got the best books. We got hand-me-downs.
They even had a second-rate busing system that served 19 school districts in the area. They say some children traveled more than 100 miles a day in unheated buses just to get to school.
There were so many of us, we had to sit on each other's laps. Each boy had to have a girl sitting on his lap because there wasn't any room.
Yet they say their school was both a home and a haven in this troubled time. They say it served as a beacon of hope for African-American children everywhere. That message came to life each Christmas when they hung a huge illuminated star from the top of the building.
It was just beautiful. It lit up the whole hill.
When you think about a star, you think about something that you have quite a distance to reach, but you reach for it.
The old school wasn't the only sign of racial injustice here in Dalton. Each day that the students were bused to the old school, they had to pass right by this cemetery. A cemetery to this very day has a fence going right down the middle of it, dividing blacks from whites.
It shouldn't be there. But hey, if they want that fence there, let them have it. Because I figure like this, I'm trying to make heaven my home. And that fence is not going to keep me from getting there.
To this day, blacks on one side, whites on the other. But these folks all agree this school was their heaven on earth. Now, after 100 years of both fame and infamy, folks question whether they should celebrate it or berate it, praise it or raise it.
I think the building ought to stand as a silent memorial to a time when there was greater injustice than there is today.
Still, talk to any Dalton student today, and they'll tell you they're not bitter about the past. They say they loved their school just the way it was and wouldn't change a thing.
If I had to go back and live my life over, I still would want to go to that school.
Dalton, Missouri, a dying town whose buildings continue to crumble, just like its treasured school that stands as a monument of an unfair system. Dalton Vocational School closed in 1956, 1 year before Missouri started integrating schools. Each Memorial Day weekend, many alums stage a pilgrimage back to their old school. It's a day-long party along Main Street where, ironically enough, blacks and whites come together. Bob Stepanich, Fox 4 News.